My husband left me for a younger lover, leaving me with nothing but debt. He laughed. You're nothing without me. But he didn't know I'd already uncovered their affair. When a year later he tried to divorce me and take my property, I quietly did this. I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. 23 years. That's how long I'd been married to Robert. 23 years of building a life together, or so I thought. I was 58 years old and my entire adult existence had been woven around this man, around us. We lived in a comfortable colonial house in suburban Massachusetts. Robert owned a mid-sized construction company. I'd worked alongside him for years, managing the books, handling payroll, keeping everything organized while he charmed clients and closed deals. We weren't wealthy, but we were stable, comfortable. Or at least, that's what I believed. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday evening in March. Robert came home late. Again. The third time that week. He barely looked at me as he grabbed a beer from the fridge. Long day? I asked, setting down my book. Yeah, big project in Lexington. You know how it is. He didn't meet my eyes. I knew how it was, but something felt different. There was a distance in his voice, an absence I couldn't quite name. When was the last time he'd really looked at me? When was the last time we'd had a real conversation? Over the next few weeks, the distance grew. Robert started taking calls in his car. He'd shower immediately after coming home, even when he claimed he'd been at the office all day. His phone was suddenly password protected. Security, he'd said when I noticed. The business accounts are on there. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. One Saturday morning, while Robert was in the shower, I checked his jacket pockets. Just his wallet, keys, and a receipt. Dinner at Mistral, one of Boston's most expensive restaurants. $247. Last Thursday. Last Thursday, he'd told me he was eating with contractors at a diner near the site. My hand shook as I photographed the receipt and put it back. Why would he lie about dinner? Unless he wasn't alone. Unless whoever he was with was someone I wasn't supposed to know about. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. The late nights, the new cologne, the way he'd lost 15 pounds and suddenly cared about his appearance again. How long had I been blind? I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed he texted constantly, always angling his phone away from me. I heard him laugh on calls in the garage, a warm, flirtatious laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Then came the credit card statement in April, jewelry from Tiffany's. I'd received nothing for our anniversary 2 months earlier, not even a card. Robert, I said one evening, keeping my voice steady, did you buy jewelry recently? He froze for just a second. What? No? Why? The Visa statement, Tiffany's, $1,200. Oh, that. Client gift. Big contract. You know how it works, Diana. We need to keep people happy. He said it so smoothly, so casually, as if I were stupid enough to believe it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside this man I'd shared a bed with for over 2 decades, and I realized I didn't know him at all. Or maybe I'd known him all along and just refused to see it. The real blow came in early May. I was at the office, our office, the one attached to his warehouse, filing paperwork when I heard voices outside. Robert didn't know I was there. I'd come in on my day off to catch up on invoicing. Can't wait much longer, baby. A woman's voice, young, breathy. When are you going to tell her? Soon, I promise. Just need to get some things in order first. That was Robert. You've been saying that for 6 months. Ashley, come on, don't be like that. You know this is complicated. There's the business, the house, the accounts. I can't just walk away. I need to protect what's mine. What's his? Everything we had, we'd built together. I'd worked 60-hour weeks alongside him when the company was struggling. I'd gone without so we could make payroll. I'd sacrificed my own career dreams to support his. She's not going to make this easy, the woman, Ashley, continued. What if she tries to take everything? Robert laughed, a cold, calculated sound. Diana? She's nothing without me. She has no idea how the business really works. By the time she figures out what's happening, it'll be too late. Trust me, baby. I've got this under control. I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. The room spun. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. You're terrible, Ashley giggled. But I love it. I love you. Love you too. Now get out of here before someone sees us. I heard a car door slam, an engine start, then Robert's footsteps heading back to the main office. I sat in that filing room for 20 minutes trying to breathe, trying to think. He was planning something. He was going to leave me, yes, but not just leave me. He was going to destroy me in the process. Take everything. Leave me with nothing. You're nothing without me. Those words echoed in my mind. But Robert had made one critical mistake. He assumed I was helpless. He assumed I'd stay blind. He had no idea that I'd just heard everything. And he had absolutely no idea what I was capable of when cornered. I wiped my tears, straightened my shoulders, and started planning. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The late afternoon sun seemed too bright, too cheerful for the devastation churning inside me. Everything I'd believed about my life had just shattered like cheap glass. When I pulled into our driveway, I sat in the car for 10 minutes, staring at the house. Our house. The blue Colonial we'd bought 20 years ago, when Robert's business was just starting to take off. I'd painted the shutters myself. I'd planted every flower in those beds. I'd made this place a home. And now he was planning to take it from me. I couldn't go inside yet. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop 3 towns over, somewhere Robert would never think to look for me. I ordered tea I didn't drink and pulled out my phone. First, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I logged into our bank accounts, the ones I had access to. Joint checking showed about $15,000. Normal. The business account, which I could view but not control, showed $73,000, lower than usual for this time of year. Where was the rest? Robert's company typically kept at least $200,000 in operating capital. We'd just completed 3 major projects. The money should be there. My stomach dropped. I pulled up our credit card accounts. There were charges I didn't recognize. Not just the Tiffany's purchase. A hotel in Newport, weekend trips to New York, restaurant bills that made my grocery budget look pathetic. How long had this been going on? 6 months, Ashley had said. Maybe longer. I did quick mental math. If Robert had been siphoning money for 6 months, systematically moving assets, hiding income, how much was already gone? How much had he already hidden away, preparing for the day he'd walk out and leave me with nothing but debt? The debt. Oh God, the debt. I pulled up our mortgage statement. We owed $280,000 on a house worth maybe $450,000. We had a business line of credit, currently drawn to its maximum of $100,000. When had that happened? Robert handled the business finances. I did administrative work, but he'd always insisted on controlling the money side. You're better with people than numbers, he'd always said, kissing my forehead like I was a child. Let me handle the complicated stuff. I'd believed him. I'd trusted him. What an idiot I'd been. I felt panic rising in my chest like floodwater. I was 58 years old. I had a degree in English literature from 35 years ago. I'd spent the last 2 decades doing administrative work for my husband's company. What was I qualified to do? Where would I go? How would I survive? Maybe Robert was right. Maybe I was nothing without him. No. I slammed my hand on the table, startling the teenager at the next table. I didn't care. I wasn't nothing. I wasn't helpless. I was angry, and anger, I was discovering, was a much more useful emotion than fear. I opened my phone's browser and typed, "Divorce lawyer, Massachusetts." Then I paused. If I started calling lawyers from my phone, would Robert see it somehow? Could he track my calls? I didn't know what he was capable of anymore. I didn't know how far his planning had gone. I needed to be smarter than him, more careful. I cleared my browser history, then drove to the public library. Using one of their computers, I researched divorce law in Massachusetts. I read about asset division, about hidden assets, about forensic accountants who specialized in uncovering financial fraud in divorces. I learned that Massachusetts was an equitable distribution state, meaning assets would be divided fairly, not necessarily equally. I learned that if Robert had been hiding money or transferring assets, it could be traced. I learned that if he'd been using business funds for his affair, I might have a claim. But I also learned that I needed to move fast. If Robert was already planning to divorce me, he was probably already hiding whatever he could. Every day I waited was another day he could move money, transfer property, or make the paper trail more complicated. I needed documentation. I needed proof. I needed evidence of everything: the affair, the hidden assets, the timeline. I checked my watch. 4:30. Robert wouldn't be home until 7 at the earliest. I drove home with a new sense of purpose. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My mind was clear. Over the next 2 hours, I systematically went through Robert's home office. I photographed every document I could find: bank statements, business contracts, tax returns. I uploaded everything to a cloud storage account Robert didn't know about, an email address I created that afternoon with a password he'd never guess. I found a second cell phone in his desk drawer, password protected. I photographed the device, noted the number on the back. In his sock drawer, I found a lease agreement for an apartment in Cambridge, 2-bedroom, luxury building, $2,800 a month. The lease started June 1st, 3 weeks away. The lease had 2 names on it, Robert Crawford and Ashley Monroe. So that was her full name, Ashley Monroe, 28 years old according to the birth date on the lease. He wasn't just planning to leave me. He was already building his new life, and he hadn't even had the decency to tell me yet. I photographed everything. Then I carefully put it all back exactly as I'd found it. When Robert came home at 7:15, I had dinner waiting. Pot roast, his favorite. I smiled when he walked in. "How was your day?" I asked sweetly. "Long, tiring, same old." He barely looked at me as he grabbed a beer. "That's too bad," I said, setting the table. "Well, dinner's ready. I hope it helps." He grunted something that might have been thanks. We ate in silence, like we'd been doing for months. But this time, the silence didn't hurt. Because this time, I had a secret too. I was going to war, and I was going to win. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Robert barely registered it, too busy texting on his way out the door. I watched from the window as his truck disappeared down the street. Then I got dressed in my best business clothes and drove into Boston. The law office of Patricia Holloway was in a sleek, high-rise downtown. I'd found her name in my research. She specialized in high-asset divorces where one spouse had hidden money. Her reviews mentioned her reputation for being thorough, aggressive, and expensive. I couldn't afford expensive, but I couldn't afford not to hire her either. The receptionist led me to a corner office with a view of the harbor. Patricia Holloway was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. "Mrs. Crawford," she said, shaking my hand, "please sit. Tell me what's going on." I'd practiced this conversation in my head a dozen times, but when I opened my mouth, everything came tumbling out in a messy rush. The affair, the overheard conversation, the missing money, the secret apartment lease. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked. 6 months at least, maybe longer. And he doesn't know you know? No, I'm certain he doesn't. Patricia nodded slowly. Good. That's very good. That gives us an advantage. She tapped her pen against her pad. Diana. May I call you Diana? I need to be completely honest with you about what we're facing. My stomach tightened. Okay. If your husband has been planning this for 6 months, he's had time to move assets, hide money, create debt in joint accounts while protecting his own interests. This is going to be a fight, possibly a long, expensive fight. How expensive? She named a retainer fee that made me dizzy. Where would I get that kind of money? Robert controlled everything. Patricia must have seen my face. However, she continued, given the circumstances, the affair, the hidden assets, the apparent fraud, we can petition the court to have your husband pay my fees. He's the one with access to the money. He's the one who created this situation. We can argue that you're entitled to legal representation funded from marital assets, a tiny spark of hope. You can do that? I can try. No guarantees, but judges don't look kindly on spouses who hide money to gain an advantage in divorce proceedings. She leaned forward. But Diana, I need to know, are you ready for this? Because once we start, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Your life is going to change dramatically. It's going to get ugly. Was I ready? 24 hours ago, I'd thought my marriage was solid, if a bit boring. Now I was sitting in a divorce lawyer's office planning to destroy my husband. But he'd destroyed us first, hadn't he? He'd made the choice. He'd betrayed everything. I'm ready, I said firmly. Patricia smiled. Good. Then here's what we're going to do. Over the next hour, she outlined the strategy. First, we needed a forensic accountant to trace the money. We needed to document everything, every asset, every account, every piece of property. We needed bank records, tax returns, business documents, everything. Get me copies of whatever you can access, Patricia said. And don't worry about whether it seems important. Get everything. Let us sort through it. What about the affair? The other woman? Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself won't affect the asset division. But if he spent marital funds on his mistress, gifts, trips, rent, we can argue that he dissipated marital assets. We can make him pay that back. I thought of the Tiffany's receipt, the hotels, the apartment lease. He spent a lot, I said quietly. Then we'll document every penny. Patricia stood, signaling the end of our meeting. One more thing, Diana. From this moment forward, you need to be careful. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you suspect anything. Act completely normal. Can you do that? Yes, I said, though the thought of sleeping next to him, pretending everything was fine, made my skin crawl. Good. I'll file a petition with the court today to access financial records. That'll take a few days. In the meantime, gather whatever documentation you can. And Diana? She walked me to the door. You're doing the right thing. Women in your position often wait too long, and by the time they act, everything's already gone. You're being smart. You're being strong. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. On the drive home, my phone rang. Robert. Where are you? His voice was sharp, suspicious. My heart jumped into my throat. Grocery shopping, why? Someone from the office said you called in sick, but your car wasn't home. How long had he been checking on me? Had he driven by the house? I felt better after some rest, I said, forcing my voice to stay casual. Thought I'd pick up a few things. Do you need something? A pause. Too long. No, just checking on you. Don't forget I have that dinner meeting tonight. I remember, I lied. I hadn't known about any dinner meeting. Okay, see you late. He hung up. I pulled over into a parking lot, my hands shaking again. He was watching me, checking on me. How much did he suspect? I thought about Patricia's words. Act completely normal. I could do this. I had to do this. I went to the grocery store and bought food for a week. When I got home, I saw Robert's truck parked on the street, not in the driveway, like he'd been sitting there, waiting, watching. He pulled away as I turned into the driveway. That night, I made dinner again. I smiled. I asked about his day. I played the role of the devoted, clueless wife. And when he left for his dinner meeting at 7, I watched him go with cold satisfaction. Because I knew something he didn't. The clock was ticking, and I was counting down every second until I could watch his entire world collapse. Patricia moved fast. Within a week, she'd filed a formal discovery request with the court, demanding full disclosure of all financial records, business accounts, personal accounts, investments, everything. That's when Robert realized something was wrong. He came home on a Thursday evening, his face red with fury. He slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. "What the hell is this, Diana?" He waved papers in my face, legal documents. I'd been preparing for this moment, rehearsing my response, but seeing him so angry, so threatening, made my resolve waver for just a second. "I don't know what you mean," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Don't play stupid with me." He threw the papers on the kitchen table. "You hired a lawyer. You're requesting financial documents. What the hell are you doing?" This was it. The moment of truth. I could back down, apologize, pretend it was all a misunderstanding, or I could stand my ground. I thought of Ashley Monroe. I thought of the apartment lease. I thought of him telling her I was nothing without him. "I'm protecting myself," I said quietly. His face went from red to purple. "Protecting yourself? From what? From me? After everything I've done for you? I gave you a life, Diana, a home. Everything you have is because of me. Everything we have, we built together." Bullshit. He stepped closer, looming over me. I'd never seen him like this, so angry, so cruel. "You've been riding my coattails for 23 years. You do basic paperwork. You answer phones. You think that's equal to what I do? To the deals I close? The business I built?" "The business we built," I corrected. "I was there from the beginning, Robert. I worked just as hard. You worked for me. There's a difference." He grabbed the papers from the table, crumpling them in his fist. "You want to play games? You want to hire lawyers and make demands? Fine. But you have no idea what you're up against. I know every dollar that comes in and out of this house. I control everything. You have nothing. No income, no savings of your own, nothing. You try to divorce me and I'll bury you. I'll make sure you walk away with nothing but debt." My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." He leaned in close, his breath hot on my face. "Cancel this lawyer. Cancel these requests. Apologize for wasting everyone's time. And maybe I'll forget this happened." "Or what?" His smile was cruel. "Or I'll file for divorce myself. Tomorrow. And I'll make sure every penny is gone before you can blink. I've got lawyers who'll tie you up in court for years. You'll lose the house, the business, everything. You'll be a broke, desperate old woman with nothing." "Old woman," the words hit like a slap. "You can't do that," I said, but my voice wavered. "Can I?" He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then showed me the screen. Bank statements, accounts I'd never seen before, accounts with hundreds of thousands of dollars, in his name only. "I've been planning for this for a long time, Diana. I'm not the stupid one here. You are." The room spun. How much money had he hidden? How long had he been planning this? Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Robert's expression shifted, just for a second, from anger to surprise. He wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find a young woman standing on our porch. She was beautiful in that effortless way young women are. Long, dark hair, perfect skin, wearing jeans and a leather jacket like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. Ashley Monroe. "Hi," she said brightly, looking past me to Robert. "Sorry to drop by, baby, but you weren't answering your phone. I got worried." Baby, she called him baby, in front of me, in my house. Robert's face went pale. "Ashley, what are you—" "Oh, don't worry," she smiled at me, all innocent sweetness. "I'm sure Diana knows all about us by now, right? I mean, with all these lawyers and court papers." She trailed off, her smile turning sharp. "You must be so upset. But honestly, Diana, and I mean this in the nicest way, you had to know this was coming. I mean, look at you, and look at him. Did you really think he'd stay with you forever?" The cruelty in her voice was stunning. She was barely 30, standing in my home with my husband, telling me I deserved to be abandoned. "Get out of my house," I said. Ashley laughed. "Your house?" "Oh, honey, this is Robert's house. You just live here. Or you did. The new place is so much better, you should see it. Modern, stylish, young." She emphasized the last word like a weapon. Robert finally found his voice. "Ashley, not now." "Why not now?" She turned to him, pouting. "You said you were going to tell her this week anyway, that you were done, that you wanted out." She looked back at me. "He's been trying to spare your feelings, Diana. But let's be real. This marriage has been dead for years. You're just too pathetic to admit it." Something inside me snapped. Not into tears, not into rage, into ice-cold clarity. These two people, these cruel, selfish, calculating people, thought they'd won. They thought they could intimidate me, humiliate me, break me down until I gave up everything without a fight. They had no idea who they were dealing with. "Get out of my house," I repeated, my voice like steel. Ashley rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Come on, Robert, let's go. This place is depressing anyway." Robert looked at me, something almost like regret flickering across his face. But then Ashley grabbed his hand and he followed her out without another word. I stood in the doorway watching them drive away together in his truck. Then I closed the door, locked it, and finally let myself cry. But not for long. I called Patricia. "They confronted me," I said when she answered. "Both of them. He threatened me. He showed me bank accounts I've never seen. He said he's been hiding money for months." "Did you get pictures of the account numbers?" I hadn't even thought of that. "No." "That's okay. We'll get them through discovery. Diana, listen to me carefully. This is good." "Good? How is this good?" "Because now we know he's worried. He showed his hand too early. He threatened you, in your home, in front of a witness if the girlfriend will testify. He admitted to hiding assets. This is all useful. He said he'd bury me in court, that I'd walk away with nothing. He's bluffing, or more accurately, he's panicking. Men like your husband are used to being in control. The minute they lose that control, they make mistakes." Patricia paused. "How are you holding up?" I looked around my empty house, my empty life. "I'm angry," I said. "Good. Stay angry. Anger will keep you strong. Sadness will come later. Right now, we fight." "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." We spent the next hour going over strategy. Patricia would file for emergency orders to prevent Robert from moving any more assets. We'd request immediate temporary support so I'd have money to live on. We'd push for a fast court date. When I hung up, I felt exhausted, hollowed out. I took the next 3 days off from everything. I didn't go to the office. I barely left my bedroom. I ordered food delivery. I let myself feel the grief, the betrayal, the fear. But on the 4th day, I got up. I showered. I dressed. And I got ready for the next round. The message came on a Sunday morning, 3 days after Ashley's cruel visit to my home. A text from an unknown number. "Can we talk, please? This has gone too far. Robert." I stared at the message for a long time, my coffee growing cold in my hands. Was this genuine? Or another manipulation? 20 minutes later, another text. I know I've hurt you. I've made terrible mistakes, but I don't want to lose everything we built. Can we meet somewhere neutral? Just talk?" My thumb hovered over the delete button. Patricia had warned me about this. "He'll try to negotiate directly," she'd said. "He'll try to bypass the lawyers, make promises, play on your emotions. Don't engage. Everything goes through me." But a small, traitorous part of me wondered, what if he was sincere? What if he'd realized what he was losing? What if there was still a chance to... No. I remembered Ashley's cruel smile. I remembered Robert showing me those hidden bank accounts, threatening to destroy me. I remembered him calling me nothing without him. I deleted the text without responding. An hour later, my doorbell rang. Robert stood on the porch, looking haggard. He'd aged 10 years in the past week, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, rumpled clothes. "Diana, please, can I come in just for a few minutes?" Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door in his face, but curiosity won out. I wanted to hear what he had to say. I wanted to see how he'd try to manipulate me now. I opened the door wider, letting him in but not speaking. We sat in the living room, the same room where we'd watched countless movies together, hosted holiday dinners, celebrated anniversaries. The ghost of our former life hung heavy in the air. "I've been an idiot," Robert began, his voice cracking. "A complete idiot. This thing with Ashley, I don't know what I was thinking. Midlife crisis, I guess. Fear of getting old. She made me feel young again, and I got caught up in the fantasy." He reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Diana, I'm asking you to forgive me, to give me another chance. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. 23 years. That has to mean something, right? We can't just throw that away." "You threw it away," I said quietly. "Not me." I know I did. And I'm so sorry." Tears filled his eyes. Actual tears. "I ended things with Ashley. It's over. She's out of my life completely. It's just you I want. It's always been you." I studied his face, looking for the lie, and I found it in the slight shift of his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He was performing, saying what he thought I wanted to hear. "What about the money?" I asked. "The accounts you've been hiding, the apartment lease." He blinked, surprised I'd mentioned specifics. I can explain all of that. I was protecting our assets. The business has been struggling more than I let on. I was trying to shelter some money from creditors. It wasn't about hiding things from you." "You put your mistress's name on a lease for an apartment you were planning to move into next month." His mouth opened and closed. That was before I came to my senses, before I realized what I was giving up. Convenient timing, right after my lawyer filed for financial discovery. That's not... He stood up, frustration creeping into his voice. "Diana, I'm trying here. I'm trying to save our marriage. I'm trying to make this right, but you're not even giving me a chance." "You didn't give me a chance," I said, standing to face him. "You didn't give me the courtesy of honesty. You planned to leave me penniless. You paraded your mistress in front of me in my own home and let her humiliate me. Now you want forgiveness? Now you want another chance?" "Yes, because I love you. Because I was wrong." "Or because your lawyer told you that a contested divorce would be expensive and messy, and you'd rather manipulate me into dropping the case than fight it out in court." Direct hit. I saw it in his face. The mask slipped. The tears dried up. His expression hardened. "Fine," he said coldly. "I tried to do this the nice way. I tried to be reasonable. But if you want to play hardball, Diana, we'll play hardball, and you're going to lose. You're going to lose big." "Get out of my house. It's my house. Get out." He left, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there shaking, but not with fear, with rage, with determination. My phone rang, my sister Jennifer. "Hey," I answered, my voice breaking. "Diana, what's wrong? You sound awful." And suddenly I was crying. Really crying. Not the controlled tears of the past week, but gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep inside me. "Jen, I need help. I need to talk to someone." "I'm coming over. Right now. Don't argue with me." She lived an hour away, but she made it in 45 minutes. She walked in, took one look at me, and pulled me into a fierce hug. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. We sat on the couch for 3 hours while I poured out the entire story. The affair, the hidden money, the threats, Ashley's cruelty, Robert's fake apology this morning. Jennifer listened without interrupting, her face growing darker with each revelation. "That absolute bastard," she finally said. "That absolute cowardly, pathetic bastard. I'm scared, Jen. What if he wins? What if I end up with nothing? He's not going to win. We won't let him." She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. "Listen to me. You are not alone in this. You have me. You have Mom. You have friends. And you have the truth on your side. Robert is the one who should be scared. He has money, lawyers, power, and you have something better. You have integrity. You have documentation. And you have a sister who will personally destroy him if he tries to hurt you." She wasn't joking. "I don't know if I can do this." "Yes, you can. You're already doing it. You hired a lawyer. You're fighting back. You're not the scared, uncertain woman he thinks you are. You're a warrior. You just forgot for a while." Her words lit something inside me, a spark of hope, of strength. "Thank you," I whispered. "Always," she said. "Now, here's what we're going to do. You're going to pack a bag and come stay with me for a week. Get out of this house. Clear your head. Let your lawyer do her job. And when you come back, you'll come back stronger." "I can't just leave." "Yes, you can. In fact, you should. Let Robert wonder where you are. Let him sweat. Let him realize you're not the pushover he thought you were." She was right. I packed a bag. I left a note for Robert, brief, cold, giving no information about where I'd gone. As we drove to Jennifer's house, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Robert had tried to tempt me back with false apologies. He'd tried to intimidate me with threats. Neither had worked. I was done being afraid. I stayed at Jennifer's house for 5 days. 5 peaceful days where I could breathe without feeling watched, where I could think without Robert's presence poisoning the air. Patricia called regularly with updates. The forensic accountant had started his work. The court had issued temporary orders preventing Robert from moving any major assets. We had a preliminary hearing scheduled for 3 weeks out. "He's getting desperate," Patricia told me. "His lawyer keeps calling, trying to negotiate. They want to settle out of court." "What are they offering?" "Insults, mostly. They want you to take a lump sum, barely enough to cover 6 months' rent, and walk away from everything else. The house, the business, all future claims." "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is. Which means they're worried. The forensic accountant is finding things, Diana. Lots of things. Your husband moved nearly $300,000 over the past 8 months. We're tracing where it went." $300,000, my God. When I returned home on Friday afternoon, I found Robert's truck in the driveway, and another car I didn't recognize, a sleek black Mercedes. My stomach tightened. What was he doing here? I'd barely gotten through the door when I heard voices in the living room, Robert's voice, and another man's, older, authoritative. I walked in to find Robert sitting on my couch with a man in an expensive suit. Salt and pepper hair, cold blue eyes, the predatory look of someone used to winning. "Diana." Robert stood, his smile forced. "Perfect timing. This is Martin Reeves, my attorney. We thought we'd stop by to have a conversation, a civilized conversation." He emphasized the word like I'd been the one acting uncivilized. Martin Reeves stood, extending his hand. I didn't take it. Mrs. Crawford, I'm glad we have this opportunity to speak. May I? He gestured to the couch like he owned the place. This is my home, I said coldly. You're not welcome here. Now, Diana, don't be hostile. Robert's voice had that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. We're all adults here. We're just trying to find a reasonable solution. I have a lawyer. Talk to her. We've tried, Martin said smoothly, but Ms. Holloway seems determined to make this contentious. We'd prefer to handle things more amicably, for everyone's benefit. Amicably, I repeated. Like when your client threatened to bury me in court, or when his mistress came to my home to insult me. Martin's expression didn't change. I understand emotions are running high. Divorce is difficult, but continuing down this path, forensic accountants, discovery requests, court battles, it's going to cost everyone time and money. Wouldn't it be better to settle this quickly and move on with your lives? What are you offering? Robert leaned forward eagerly. $150,000 cash. Plus, you keep your car, your personal belongings, and we pay off your credit cards. You sign away all claims to the business and the house, and we're done. You can start fresh, Diana. New life. New possibilities. I almost laughed. You stole $300,000 from our accounts, and you're offering me half of that? Robert's face darkened. I didn't steal anything. That's my money. Marital assets, I corrected. Everything earned during our marriage is marital property. Your lawyer should have told you that. Martin Reeves' smile tightened. Mrs. Crawford, I'll be direct. You don't want to go to court. Your husband's business is complex. Tracing assets will take years. You'll spend tens of thousands in legal fees. You have no independent income, no career prospects at your age. He paused, letting that phrase hang in the air. This offer is generous given your circumstances. Take it and save yourself a lot of pain. At my age, there it was again. The subtle knife. The reminder that I was old, obsolete, worthless. My circumstances? I kept my voice level. You mean the circumstances where my husband had an affair, hid marital assets, and tried to defraud me out of everything I'm entitled to? That's a very dramatic interpretation. That's what happened, and I have proof. Bank statements, text messages, witness statements, a lease agreement with his mistress's name on it, paid for with marital funds. Martin's eyes flickered, just for a second, with uncertainty. Take the offer, Diana, Robert said, his voice hardening. It's the best you're going to get. Push this further, and I promise you, you'll regret it. I'll make sure the divorce takes years. I'll appeal every decision. I'll drag you through every court in Massachusetts. By the time we're done, you'll have nothing left. Not even your dignity. My dignity? I stepped closer, looking him right in the eye. My dignity was never in question. Yours, however. Robert's face turned red. You ungrateful... Choose your next words very carefully, I interrupted, because your lawyer is a witness, and if you threaten me again, I'll make sure the judge hears about it. Martin stood quickly. I think we're done here. Robert, let's go. No! Robert lunged toward me. Not violently, but aggressively enough that I stepped back. You don't get to ruin everything. You don't get to take what's mine. What's yours? My voice rose despite my best efforts to stay calm. I gave you 23 years. I worked 60-hour weeks building your business. I gave up my career, my dreams, everything to support you. And you think you can just throw me away like garbage? You were dead weight, Robert shouted. For years, you've been dead weight. I built this business. Me, you just answered phones. The words hung in the air like poison. Martin grabbed Robert's arm. That's enough. We're leaving. Now. But Robert wasn't done. You want to know the truth, Diana? The real truth? I stopped loving you years ago. Years. I stayed out of obligation, out of pity. Ashley made me remember what it's like to be with someone who isn't a dried-up, bitter... Robert! Martin practically dragged him toward the door. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, tears threatening but refusing to fall. At the door, Robert turned back one more time. "You're going to lose everything," he said, his voice cold and final. "And when you do, don't come crying to me." They left. The house fell silent. I stood there for a long moment, my hands shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. Dried up, bitter, dead weight. Is that what he really thought? After everything? A wave of fear crashed over me. What if he was right? What if I couldn't win? What if I ended up alone and broke at 58 with no prospects, no future, no hope? But then, underneath the fear, something else stirred. Rage. Pure white-hot rage. How dare he? How dare he? I pulled out my phone and called Patricia. "They just left my house," I said when she answered. "Robert and his lawyer. They came to intimidate me, to make me accept a settlement." "Did you talk to them?" "Diana, I told you. I told them to go to hell. Well, not in those exact words, but close enough." Patricia laughed. "Good. How are you feeling?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Angry," I said, determined, and ready to destroy him. "Perfect," Patricia said, "because the forensic accountant just called. He found something big, really big. Can you come to my office Monday morning?" "I'll be there." I hung up and looked around my house, my home, the place I'd built, nurtured, loved. Robert thought he could take it from me. He thought he could break me down with insults and threats and intimidation. He had no idea what he'd unleashed. The fear was still there, lurking in my chest, but now it was fuel. Fuel for the fire that would burn his whole fake world down. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, a stern-faced judge sitting behind an elevated desk. Judge Catherine Morrison, according to the nameplate. Mid-60s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. It was Monday, 3 weeks after Robert and his lawyer had invaded my home. 3 weeks of preparation, documentation, and building our case. Patricia had been right. The forensic accountant, David Chen, had found everything, and what he'd found was damning. Robert sat at the defendant's table with Martin Reeves, wearing his best suit, his hair freshly cut. He looked confident, comfortable, like he'd already won. He didn't even glance at me. Ashley sat in the back row, dressed inappropriately for court in a tight dress and heels. She caught my eye and smirked, the same cruel smile from that day on my porch. Let her smile. Let them both smile. It wouldn't last long. Judge Morrison called the hearing to order. This was a preliminary hearing to address the emergency motions. My request to freeze all assets and Robert's counter motion to dismiss the forensic investigation as frivolous and invasive. Patricia stood first. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Crawford has systematically dissipated marital assets over the past 8 months in preparation for divorce. We've documented over $300,000 moved from marital accounts into hidden accounts, as well as substantial funds used to support an extramarital affair." Martin Reeves stood immediately. "Your Honor, these allegations are completely unfounded. Mr. Crawford has a right to manage his own business funds. The forensic investigation is a fishing expedition designed to harass my client. Your Honor, if I may." Patricia held up a folder. "We have documentation, bank transfers, credit card statements, lease agreements, and testimony from witnesses. We'd like to present our findings." Judge Morrison nodded. "Proceed." David Chen, the forensic accountant, took the stand. He was methodical, precise, devastating. He presented a chart showing the flow of money. Robert had opened 3 separate accounts in his name only, 2 at different banks, 1 offshore. Over 8 months, he'd systematically transferred funds from the business and their joint accounts into these hidden accounts. Total amount, $347,000. Additionally, David continued, Mr. Crawford used marital funds to pay for an apartment lease for himself and Ms. Ashley Monroe. The apartment costs $2,800 per month. He also purchased jewelry, clothing, and paid for numerous vacations, all with Ms. Monroe, all with marital funds. Total expenditure on the extramarital relationship, approximately $68,000. The courtroom was silent. I watched Robert's face. The confidence was cracking. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. We also found that Mr. Crawford recently created significant debt in joint accounts, credit cards, business lines of credit, while simultaneously moving assets into protected accounts. This appears to be a deliberate attempt to saddle Mrs. Crawford with debt while protecting his own interests. Martin Reeves stood. Your Honor, my client was making legitimate business decisions. Legitimate. Patricia's voice cut through like a blade. Paying for his mistress's apartment is a legitimate business decision? The affair is irrelevant in a no-fault state. The dissipation of marital assets is absolutely relevant, as is the fraudulent creation of debt designed to disadvantage one spouse. Judge Morrison raised her hand. Mr. Reeves, does your client dispute these findings? The bank transfers, the hidden accounts, the expenditures on Ms. Monroe? A pause too long. Your Honor, my client exercised his right to manage business funds. That's not what I asked. Does he dispute the factual findings? Yes or no? Martin looked at Robert, who was whispering urgently in his ear. We would need time to review the documents. Counselor, you've had 3 weeks. Your client either disputes these facts or he doesn't. Your Honor! Martin was floundering now, his smooth confidence gone. Let me make this simple. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Mr. Crawford, stand up! Robert stood, his face pale. Did you or did you not open accounts in your name only and transfer over $300,000 of marital assets into those accounts without your wife's knowledge? Those were business accounts, for business purposes. Did you or did you not use marital funds to pay for an apartment for yourself and Ms. Monroe? Robert's hands were shaking. Your Honor, that was a mistake. I was planning to reimburse. A mistake that cost $68,000? Judge Morrison looked at him like he was something unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. Mr. Crawford, I've been a family court judge for 24 years. I've seen every trick, every scheme, every attempt to hide assets and defraud a spouse. And yours isn't even creative. It's textbook. From the back of the courtroom, I heard Ashley gasp. She was starting to understand that this wasn't going the way they'd planned. Your Honor, if we could have a recess, Martin tried. No. Here's what's going to happen. Judge Morrison looked at her notes. All accounts in Mr. Crawford's name are frozen, effective immediately. All marital assets are frozen pending full financial disclosure. Mr. Crawford is ordered to pay Mrs. Crawford temporary spousal support in the amount of $5,000 per month. He is also ordered to pay her legal fees, including the forensic accountant's fees, within 30 days. Your Honor, that's... Additionally, I'm ordering an expedited trial date. 60 days, no delays, no continuances. We're going to settle this quickly because I will not allow Mr. Crawford to continue dissipating marital assets while hiding behind legal proceedings. Robert looked like he might be sick. Mrs. Crawford, Judge Morrison said, looking directly at me, I want you to know that the court takes financial fraud very seriously. What your husband did, hiding assets, creating debt, using marital funds for an affair, these are not business decisions. These are deliberate attempts to gain an unfair advantage. The court will not allow it. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed to say. We're adjourned. 60 days, counselors. Get your affairs in order. The gavel came down. For a moment, no one moved. Then Robert turned to look at me, really look at me, for the first time in months. His expression was a mix of shock, rage, and something that might have been fear. I met his gaze steadily. No tears, no emotion, just cold, satisfied certainty. You called me nothing, I thought. You said I was worthless without you. Look at me now. Martin was pulling Robert toward the exit, whispering urgently. As they passed, I heard Robert hiss to Ashley, who'd rushed to join them. "This is your fault. If you hadn't pushed me—" "My fault?" Ashley's voice rose. "You said you had this under control. You said she was too stupid to fight back." Their voices faded as they left the courtroom. Patricia turned to me, grinning. "That," she said, "is what we call a very good day." I couldn't speak. My whole body was trembling. Not with fear, but with the release of months of tension. "We've got him," Patricia continued. "The judge basically handed us the case. 60 days, and you're going to get everything you deserve." Everything I deserved. Justice, vindication, victory. And the look on Robert's face as his whole plan collapsed in front of him. Yes, that was a very good day indeed. The trial took place on a gray November morning, exactly 60 days after the preliminary hearing. The courthouse was busier this time. A full courtroom, more witnesses, more evidence. Patricia had prepared me thoroughly. "This is it," she'd said the night before. "This is where we finish it." Robert looked terrible. He'd aged years in 2 months. The charm, the confidence, the swagger, all gone. Replaced by a haggard, desperate man who'd watched his carefully constructed plan fall apart piece by piece. Ashley wasn't in the courtroom this time. I'd heard through Jennifer's friend, who knew someone who knew Ashley's former roommate, that the relationship had imploded. Apparently, when Robert's money dried up and the reality of his situation became clear, Ashley had disappeared. Last anyone heard, she'd moved back to Ohio to live with her parents. Karma worked quickly sometimes. The trial was brutal and clinical. Patricia presented the evidence methodically, building an airtight case. David Chen testified again, presenting the full forensic accounting. $347,000 hidden, $68,000 spent on the affair, another $90,000 in debt deliberately created in joint accounts, while Robert protected his personal assets. "And where is that money now?" Patricia asked. "The accounts have been frozen by court order," David replied. "All $347,000 is accounted for and preserved." We presented the apartment lease with Ashley's name on it. Credit card statements showing luxury hotels, expensive dinners, jewelry purchases, all dated throughout Robert's affair, all paid with marital funds. We presented testimony from Robert's own business partner, Tom Mitchum, who reluctantly admitted that Robert had discussed his exit strategy months before, his plan to minimize losses when he left his marriage. "He said that?" Patricia asked. "Minimize losses?" Tom looked miserable. He and Robert had been friends for 20 years. "Yes, he said he needed to protect the business assets before Diana could get her hands on them. Before Mrs. Crawford could get her hands on marital property she was legally entitled to." "Objection," Martin tried. "I'll rephrase," Patricia said smoothly. "Did Mr. Crawford discuss hiding marital assets from his wife?" Tom hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." The final blow came from an unexpected source. Patricia called me to the stand. I'd been nervous about testifying, but when I sat down and looked at Robert, really looked at him, all the fear evaporated. Patricia asked me about our marriage, our life together, the business we'd built. "Mrs. Crawford, did you work for your husband's business?" "I worked for our business. I was there from day one. I did payroll, managed accounts, handled client communications. For the first 5 years, I worked 70-hour weeks while Robert built his reputation. I went without salary so we could make payroll for the crew." "Did your husband acknowledge these contributions?" I thought about all the times he'd introduced me as just my wife. All the times he dismissed my work as helping out. No, I said quietly. He told people I answered phones. What did you give up to support his business? Everything. I had a teaching degree. I'd planned to work in education. Instead, I put that aside to build the business with Robert. I believed we were partners. Patricia nodded sympathetically, then shifted gears. When did you first suspect your husband was having an affair? I told them everything. The warning signs, the overheard conversation, the discovery of the apartment lease, Ashley's cruel visit to my home. How did that make you feel? Patricia asked. Destroyed, I said honestly. Not just because of the affair, but because of what Robert said. That I was nothing without him, that I was worthless, that I'd been dead weight for years. I looked directly at Robert. He couldn't meet my eyes. Were you dead weight, Mrs. Crawford? No, I said firmly. I was a partner who kept her promises. I was a wife who honored her vows. I was a woman who worked hard and gave everything to our shared life, and I deserved better. When I stepped down, I saw tears in the eyes of several people in the courtroom. Closing arguments were swift. Martin Reeves tried to salvage something, anything, arguing that the affair was irrelevant, that the hidden accounts were legitimate business practices, that Robert had always intended to divide assets fairly. Judge Morrison looked skeptical. Patricia's closing was devastating. Your Honor, this case is about betrayal, fraud, and a man who viewed his wife as an obstacle to his selfish desires. Robert Crawford didn't just have an affair. He systematically planned to defraud his wife of her share of marital assets. He hid money. He created debt. He used marital funds to support his mistress. And when confronted, he threatened to bury Mrs. Crawford in court. She paused, letting the words sink in. The law is clear. Marital assets must be divided equitably. When one spouse dissipates assets or acts in bad faith, the court can and should punish that behavior. Mrs. Crawford is entitled to her fair share. She's entitled to reimbursement for the money Mr. Crawford spent on his affair, and she's entitled to justice. Judge Morrison took less than an hour to render her decision. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony. This is one of the more egregious cases of marital asset dissipation I've seen. Mr. Crawford's actions were deliberate, calculated, and done in bad faith. She looked at Robert with clear disgust. The marital home is awarded to Mrs. Crawford. The business, Crawford Construction, will be sold, and proceeds divided with Mrs. Crawford receiving 65% due to Mr. Crawford's bad faith conduct. All hidden accounts are awarded to Mrs. Crawford as reimbursement for dissipated assets. Mr. Crawford is responsible for all marital debt. Robert's face went white. Additionally, Mr. Crawford will pay Mrs. Crawford alimony of $4,000 per month for 10 years. He will pay all of her legal fees, including forensic accounting costs. Total, $93,000. Martin Reeves was frantically writing notes, probably already planning an appeal. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished. Mr. Crawford, let me be clear. You lied. You cheated. You attempted to defraud your wife. If this had been a criminal case, you'd be facing fraud charges. Consider yourself fortunate that Mrs. Crawford chose the civil route. The gavel came down. It was over. I sat there stunned. I'd won. Completely, totally. Robert stormed out of the courtroom without a word, Martin rushing after him. Patricia grabbed my hand. We did it, she said, grinning. We destroyed him. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer was waiting. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. You won. You actually won everything. I did, I said, and finally let myself cry. But these were different tears. Not grief, not fear. Relief, joy, victory. Robert had tried to destroy me. Instead, I'd destroyed him. And it felt absolutely glorious. 6 months after the trial, I stood in my kitchen. My kitchen, in my house, making coffee and watching the sunrise through the window. So much had changed. The divorce was finalized. The house was legally mine, all documents signed and recorded. I'd had the locks changed the day after the trial. Robert's belongings had been boxed up and delivered to his new address, a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Malden, about as far from his luxury dreams as possible. The business had sold quickly. A larger construction firm had been interested for years, and with Robert's reputation in tatters and desperate for cash, he'd had no leverage to negotiate. The sale brought in $1.2 million, 65% of that, $780,000, was now sitting in my bank account. My bank account, not a joint account, not an account Robert controlled, mine. Combined with the hidden money the court had awarded me and the equity from the house, I had over $1 million. After 23 years of letting Robert control everything, of being told I was nothing without him, I was financially secure for the rest of my life. But more than the money, I had something else: freedom. I'd started teaching again, just part-time at first at a local community college, English composition and literature. The students were wonderful, engaged, curious. Being in a classroom again, doing something I'd loved and abandoned so long ago, felt like coming home. I'd also started writing. Nothing serious yet, just journaling at first. But then I'd started a blog about financial abuse in marriage, about recognizing the warning signs, about finding the strength to fight back. It had gained a surprising following. Women and men reaching out to say thank you, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. I'd become a voice for people who felt voiceless. It was the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. Jennifer visited often, proud and protective. "You're like a phoenix," she'd said recently. "You rose from the ashes of that marriage and became something better." I'd laughed, but she wasn't wrong. I'd also reconnected with old friends, people I'd drifted away from during my marriage, people Robert hadn't liked or had found boring. Turned out they were wonderful, and I'd missed them terribly. My life wasn't perfect. I still had hard days, days when I felt lonely, days when I questioned whether I'd made the right choices, whether I could have tried harder to save the marriage. But then I'd remember Robert's face when he told me I was nothing. I'd remember Ashley's cruel smile. I'd remember the deliberate, calculated way he'd tried to destroy me. And I'd remember that I deserved better. I was 59 now, and I was happy. Really, genuinely happy. Maybe for the first time in decades. As for Robert, I didn't go looking for information about him, but in a small community, news traveled. He was broke. The business sale had given him money, but after paying all the marital debts he'd created, the legal fees and my settlement, he'd been left with barely $200,000. The alimony payments, $4,000 a month, were eating through his savings rapidly. He'd tried to start a new construction business, but his reputation was ruined. Word had spread about the divorce, about the fraud, about how he'd tried to cheat his wife. No one wanted to work with him. No one trusted him. He'd been forced to take a job as a project manager for someone else's company, working for someone else, after years of being the boss, taking orders, making a fraction of what he'd once earned. Jennifer's friend's sister worked at the company. She reported that Robert was miserable, bitter, angry, blaming everyone but himself for his situation. "He talks about you," Jennifer told me over lunch one day. "Says you stole everything from him. Says you manipulated the judge, that you ruined his life." I ruined his life? I couldn't help but laugh. He ruined his own life. I just made sure he didn't ruin mine in the process. As for Ashley, that story was almost too perfect to believe. After she'd fled back to Ohio, she'd apparently tried to reinvent herself. She'd moved to Cleveland, gotten a job at a marketing firm, tried to start fresh. But then someone at her new company had found her social media posts. the ones where she'd bragged about her rich, older boyfriend and mocked his pathetic wife. Screenshots had been shared. The posts had gone viral locally. The marketing firm, concerned about their image, had let her go. Last Jennifer had heard, Ashley was back to waiting tables and living with roommates, her dreams of luxury and easy money completely shattered. She posted something on Facebook, Jennifer said, showing me her phone, about how some mistakes cost you everything and how she's learned so much about real values. I read the post. It was dripping with self-pity, with carefully crafted victimhood. "Do you feel bad for her?" Jennifer asked. I thought about it honestly. Did I? No, I said finally. She knew Robert was married. She came to my home and deliberately humiliated me. She called me pathetic and said I deserved to be thrown away. She made her choices. She participated in trying to destroy me. She was young. She was 32. Old enough to know better. Old enough to understand consequences. I handed the phone back. I don't wish her harm, but I don't feel sorry for her either. She and Robert deserve each other. They just don't get to be together anymore. Jennifer laughed. Cold, I love it. But it wasn't cold, it was just justice. That evening, I sat on my back porch. The porch I'd helped build, the porch Robert had wanted to tear down and replace with something more modern, and watched the sunset. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, scared, uncertain, believing I was nothing without my husband. And I thought about the woman I was now, strong, independent, thriving. Robert had tried to break me. Instead, he'd freed me. I raised my glass of wine to the sunset, to the future, to myself. Thank you, I whispered to the universe. Thank you for giving me the strength to fight. Thank you for showing me what I'm capable of. The sunset blazed orange and gold, beautiful and fierce. Just like me, my new life had begun, and it was going to be extraordinary. So that's my story. 1 year ago, I thought my life was over. My husband left me for a younger woman, tried to steal everything we'd built, and told me I was worthless. Today, I'm stronger, happier, and more financially secure than I've ever been. But here's my question for you. What would you do if you discovered your partner was betraying you, hiding money, planning to destroy you? Would you fight back? Would you have the courage to stand up for yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below telling me your story or what you would do in my situation. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to my channel. I share stories of survival, strength, and justice. Stories of people who refuse to be victims. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, you are never nothing without someone else. You are enough, exactly as you are. Stay strong, stay fierce, and never let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time.